Yes, you read that title correctly. And really, you'd have a hard time convincing me otherwise. When I heard The Devil is a Part-Timer was getting a second season, I was excited. I was so excited that I went back to rewatch the first season to remind myself of what had happened. And that's when I noticed something. Mao kinda sucks at his job. Not as a fast food worker, he's excellent at that. He sucks as a demon lord. Which I suppose isn't too surprising considering his first appearance is Emilia walking into his house, cutting off one of his horns and making him run away. But there is a real problem in how the story is constructed around its initial premise that puts a huge asterisk in Mao's character. And in this video, I want to look at what it is, why it happened, if it was inevitable given the premise of the show, and if it could have been averted. It should also be noted that I'm mostly just going off the anime. There's a good chance everything I'm about to mention is explained away in the light novel or manga, which, fair enough. But if the fandom spent 9 years asking for a new anime season instead of getting into either of those mediums, I think I should at least be allowed to point out flaws in the adaptation, because that's clearly what most people are familiar with. But feel free to tell me how dumb I am in the comments if everything I'm about to say is an anime only issue. Hell, if it's explained away in the anime by the end of the second season, I will admit defeat. I will hold that the fact it took so long to explain is a problem, even ignoring the gap between season 1 and 2, but I will accept that it exists. The core problem with Maou was the show's difficulty in associating what he used to be and what he should be with what he is. Demon Lord Satan was a scourge that led an army that almost conquered Ente Isla, and Maou Sadao is very much not that. But the show thinks he is in how it tries to portray him as not only a leader, but a highly competent one that cares a lot for his underlings and the paragon of responsibility. The only problem is, if he was actually anything like that, the show would never happen.
しーちゃんは俺の後輩で大切な部下だ。俺は魔王として時間帯責任者として部下を守る。
私が言うことじゃないけど、残してきた部下とか心配にならないわけ？
ああ、それはもう諦めてる。エンテイスラの魔王軍の残党なんざとっくに根絶やしにされてる。よし、これにするか。
エミリアとサタン、腹心の部下アルシエルが消滅したわけ。中央大陸では5大陸。
When it's convenient to the show, Maou is portrayed as a highly competent, truly amazing leader who is great at organizing and coming up with solutions for his problems and is very attentive to those who work for him. Except for the tiny matter of the kingdom he united being ignored while he worries about broken ice cream machines. Because apparently they are always broken. I wouldn't know, I've been in a McDonald's twice in my entire life. If Maou really believed in taking responsibility for his actions, or his subordinates, or conquering humanity, he would have left for Ente Isla the second he got his powers back.
下の門の失態は上の門の責任だ。エンテイスラでもマグロナルドでもそれは変わりはしない。
It's funny he says this after determining that working his shifts is more important than doing anything about the war he started. The thing about the show is that Mao's character integrity is tied to the whole Demon Lord thing. His war killed thousands, if not tens of thousands. Emi's father is dead because of him. Unless the audience is expected to completely ignore this, there should at least be a marginally good reason for why he did it, even if it only makes sense to someone who's a demon. Season 2 implies he did it for the sake of peace in the demon realm. But apparently, while that was so important that he could let his armies destroy and massacre towns and villages, it's not so important he can skip out on teaching Chio how to use the self-serving machine at work. And it would be one thing the show simply maintained that he was perpetually too weak to leave, but then how would it have its massive fight scenes to remind us that Maou is actually a powerful demon lord? It's not like he acts in a way that would make you think that otherwise. So the show has him talk about needing to take responsibility and then use up all the magic he recently gathered in order to fix the damage from his fights. I laughed when he said he didn't have enough magic to open a gate to Ente Isla, and one of the reasons was because he had actually opened the gate for this express purpose of just throwing his opponent back there like trash. And even more hilariously, that didn't lead to anything because his opponent was teleported right back to Earth to become a fat joke. Another thing that this ignores is ASCII, the guy who is constantly talking about how they need to go back to conquering their world. The same guy who was shown to have been restored to full power at the same time Maou was towards the end of season 1. Only for all that power to disappear in the next episode because it's rather inconvenient. Now, I've been told ASCII regaining his power is actually something that only happens in the anime, which is just hilarious because that means the anime went out of its way to create an entire filler subplot for the sole purpose of one joke, which inadvertently created a massive plot hole. The fact of the matter is, the story, and much of its comedy, relies on how funny it is the Demon Lord and his generals are living in poverty without actually considering how it negatively reflects on all of them as characters and makes it hard to believe any of them were in charge of anything. Am I supposed to believe the guy who is in tears at the idea of leaving the house and working is the great demon general Lucifer? Meanwhile, literally everyone else who came from Ente Isla is better off with less effort. This is actually a side effect of how the character motivations work. The demons can't be allowed to get their power back because then it makes no sense that they remain in the human world. The people on the side of humanity, however, are only in the human world to watch them like glorified babysitters, so they are allowed to live more comfortably because they are not leaving either way. Emilia is much more competent at living in the human realm and even manages to keep track of what happens in Ente Isla, while in the latest episode of the anime, Maou seems flabbergasted that his kingdom has been falling apart while he's been gone for a year. She comments that she on her own has a higher standard of living than both Maou and ASCII are working together, and as I watch ASCII go into detail about how economic it is to have a semi-automatic washing machine, only for Emilia to say she doesn't understand what he's talking about because she only uses a fully automatic one, I just can't take them seriously as a threat worth hunting down in another world. The story can't justify its premise if Maou isn't always too weak to return, so it limits his power, and since Emilia and the humans only need to stay as long as he's there, they get deliveries of an easy way to replenish their power, Holy Vitamin Beta. It also wants to have Maou show off his power and how great he is, but it can't have him do so by finding ways to escape poverty because that would ruin the joke. So giant flashy magic battles it is. There's also the fact that choosing to stay puts himself, his subordinates, and the earth in general in danger of attacks from his enemies while he remains constantly weakened. When the great demon lord needs a crying high school girl to convince his enemy not to beat him up and then asks the hero, who 1 episode ago he said he can't fully trust, to sleep over so she can fight the battle for him, I just find myself completely unimpressed. When Lucifer scared of Gabriel's heavenly fodder, I might have been impressed if every other part of the story didn't go out of its way to emphasize how pathetic he is, even compared to Chio, the human with no power. Now, this isn't completely unsalvageable. There are suggestions that Maou just doesn't want to go back to being the Demon King, but those are just suggestions that are both undermined by how often literally everyone repeats that he still totally wants to go conquer humanity, guys, trust me. And the story refusing to go into said motivations of the possibility he prefers living in poverty as a human. And it definitely doesn't want to address what he's done in the past and whether or not any of it was worth it if he's really going to abandon it all just to live in the human realm. The fact that Emilia is so casual with Urushihara, who led the army that destroyed her village and killed her father, and who tried to murder her and Maou just a few days ago, makes it obvious the whole demon lord whose invasion killed thousands thing is actually a bit problematic for the vibe the show is going for. It's perfectly fine if Maou doesn't want to be Satan anymore, but we can't pretend that doesn't make him irresponsible, and that goes against what the show keeps telling us about him. Now, how would I suggest getting around this? Well, the living in poverty thing is kind of baked into the show's structure and comedy. I mean, house husband ASCII is pretty hilarious. But the anime needs to stop trying to have its cake and eat it too. The way I see it, 3 changes are necessary to minimize the problems I've talked about without completely changing the structure of the show. First, travel back to Ente Isla should be completely impossible for the time being. No one of importance has actually gone to Earth and had to go back except maybe Gabriel and Lila, but you could just say it's something only archangels can do. Emilia's friends leave like a minute after they arrive, and Sariel practically bounces back into the human realm. So make it so that there's just no way for any of the main characters to make it back regardless of their magic power. So even when Satan is at full power, they still have to look for a way to go back and have to maintain their identities. Plus, that means the story doesn't have to keep draining the main character of all power to try and justify him not going back while ignoring the 2 demons with him at all time, and how irresponsible it makes him look that he prioritized fixing a bridge over making sure he has the power to not die the next time someone shows up to kill him. Now, for plot reasons, communication can still be possible. Even deliveries if you still want to keep holy vitamin beta, just nothing can physically leave Earth to go to Ente Isla. The second change would be to lean into Mao's incompetence. Instead of trying to convince us that the guy shirking his responsibilities to live in one room with his two subordinates is actually a competent, reliable leader, make it so his incompetence is what led to his loss to Emilia, and his time in the human realm is teaching him otherwise now that he can't rely on magic. That way, the audience feels less reason to question it when he seems to be the only one from Ente Isla actually suffering for being in the human realm, even though he wants to be there the most. And it can also lead to a plot line where we get to see him finally pull himself and his men out of economic ruts with the lessons he's learned. I mean, all the ingredients for such a storyline are right there. This show just needs to take a break from its main joke, I guess. The third point is probably the least important and is in regards to Mao's supposed enemies. Emilia and Suzuno's powers don't particularly matter. Like I said, their motivations are basically wrapped entirely around Mao's presence. And if you are going to constantly keep Maou under power, then yeah, he's gonna need them at full power so that the first person who shows up to beat him doesn't kill him. Personally, I feel the fact that everyone else has all the power they need while Maou has to beg, take beatings, and be saved like a helpless human isn't ideal, but maybe that's building to something. We'll see. Honestly, I'd also make it so Emilia is also pretty powerless in the human realm and say that she also has to get magic from human emotions. If she absolutely must be receiving her drugs and info from her friends, make a clear distinction that it's because, unlike the Demon King army, her side was actually properly managed, so such a thing is possible even after she's completely disappeared. If played like this, it becomes much easier to accept how bad the main character's situation is in comparison to everyone else, and also works into a character arc while not making it so hard to buy that he's stuck in the human world. I mean, legitimately, if he just ignored the broken bridge, he could have gone back in episode 5 of the first season. Actually wait, now that I've said that out loud, it sounds vaguely like what I've been told the premise of Jahi-sama is. Maybe I'll actually go watch that. But what do you guys think? Am I wrong and is Maou totally a smart demon lord who's trying his best? Are my criticisms things that only exist in the anime? Or do you even agree that it's kind of difficult to take Maou seriously when the Ente Isla plotline is in focus, even though he is an entertaining character in the slice of life sections? Tell me in the comments below, as well as hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Thank you and good day.